You guys can see I have a guest with me today, Deanne Hayes from Middle Tennessee State University. Deanne, thanks so much for being here today. We are going to take some time today during what is undoubtedly a busy time of year for you guys with the new semester kicking off. So thank you again for joining us for our webinar today. We're going to talk about how you can identify your institution's unique story, look at a few content ideas, and discuss how to implement your storytelling strategy. If you do have questions today, feel free to drop those into the questions box as we go through, and time permitting, we will answer those at the end. Before we get started, just a little bit about us. Social News Desk is the only social media management software that's purpose-built for important business. We were founded in 2010, and since then, we've proudly supported America's largest news companies, cities, government agencies, universities, and businesses who require powerful, always-on social media tools. Social News Desk helps organizations save time with a one-stop shop for social media publishing, take control of their entire social footprint in a single, easy-to-use dashboard, stay informed and engaged with the community around them with social listening tools, demonstrate value to stakeholders with powerful reporting, and gain peace of mind with our always ready human support team. And a little bit about me. I'm Sarah Lloyd, the head of product success and evangelism here at Social News Desk. I've been with the team for about 10 years now, and prior to joining SND, I managed social media and worked in several newsrooms. And I was actually a Social News Desk customer before I joined the team, so I have been familiar with the software for a minute. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. The address is there on the screen. And I am pleased today to also welcome Deanne Hayes, as I mentioned, a communications specialist at Middle Tennessee State University in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And we will do a Q&A with Deanne a little bit later on. So thanks so much, Deanne, for being with us. And for now, let's go ahead and jump right in. So first of all, why is storytelling so important on social media? Many universities can talk about class size, campus life, rigorous academics, or connected alumni when they're trying to persuade new students to attend or persuade donors to give. So screenwriting lecturer Robert McKee told the Harvard Business Review, there are two ways to persuade people. The first is by using conventional rhetoric, which is what most executives are trained in. It's an intellectual process, and in the business world, it usually consists of a PowerPoint slide presentation in which you say, here's our company's biggest challenge, and here's what we need to do to prosper. And you build your case by giving statistics and facts and quotes from authorities. But there are two problems with rhetoric. First, the people you're talking to have their own set of authorities, statistics, and experiences. While you're trying to persuade them, they're arguing with you in their heads. Second, if you do succeed in persuading them, you've only done so on an intellectual basis. That's not good enough because people are not inspired to act by reason alone. And he continues, the other way to persuade people, and ultimately a much more powerful way, is by uniting an idea with an emotion. The best way to do that is by telling a compelling story. In a story, you not only weave a lot of information into the telling, but you also arouse your listeners' emotions and energy. And stories do so much more than just conveying information. They capture our audience's attention, which is so important in a crowded social media landscape. The emotions that stories evoke help audiences develop empathy for the characters, which promotes greater understanding of other people. And stories can be more persuasive by connecting with your audience on that deeper emotional level, which makes the information you're trying to convey more memorable. When deciding how to tell your university's story, consider your goals and what you want audiences to take away. Your university marketing might include any or all of these goals: promoting brand awareness or increasing the visibility and recognition of the institution, fostering engagement interactions with students, parents, alumni, and potential donors, recruiting prospective students by showcasing campus life, academic programs, and success stories, building a sense of belonging and community among current students, alumni, and faculty, leveraging social platforms for fundraising campaigns and initiatives, and providing timely updates in managing the institution's reputation during times of crisis. Each goal has a variety of audiences that might include prospective or current students, parents, alumni, both recent and long-term, sports fans, donors, the local community in which your university is located, and job seekers looking for employment with your university. And each of these audiences are encountering and engaging with your content in different places. So whether you're conducting outreach on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, LinkedIn, X, or Threads, you should be mindful of the audiences that will tend to see your content on each of those platforms. So now let's get into crafting your institution's own story and how we can tell it effectively. Think about what makes your college or university unique. Do you have interesting student or alumni traditions, clubs or departments that just aren't found anywhere else, or an interesting history? Are there notable alumni that you can share stories about? Does your campus have unique features such as an interesting art gallery, a creamery where students can go to get ice cream, or a rock climbing wall? What's the personality of your institution like? Are the faculty and staff more laid back or more traditional? You might also consider the surroundings, such as the city in which your college or university is located, proximity to the beach, or other natural features nearby. If your school offers generous financial aid or other ways to make college more affordable, that's also a great story to tell. The next step is identifying and defining the parts of your story. These are the 5 C's of storytelling. First, decide who your characters are. Is it a student, members of a department, your sports team, or alumni? Next, set up the context, the scene for the story. Set up the stakes. Why does your audience care about this character and their journey? Build conflict and tension in your story. For a story aimed at recruiting prospective students, you might have your student character arriving on campus knowing nobody, facing the problem of building a community around themselves. At the climax of the story, reveal how the tension is resolved. In our example, your student might be connected with one of the many clubs on campus and finds their community and a new group of friends. This is the aha moment. And finally, give the audience closure. What's the takeaway of the story? What do you want audiences to remember the most? So let's explore these 5 C's in a little bit more detail. First, choose a character or group of characters to be the centerpiece of your story. This gives your story the human element that makes it so relatable to your audience. Your institution will have a unique cast of characters that you can choose from. You can showcase students who are just arriving to campus, thriving in their daily campus life, and excelling in or out of the classroom. Your faculty and staff also have unique stories and challenges to share. Sports is tailor-made for storytelling, whether it's overcoming obstacles or winning a championship. Your alumni, whether they're well known or not, can help you tell stories of their successes after graduation and how your institution shaped their career trajectory. Today, let's imagine our story is about new students moving into their dorm rooms for the very first time. We show a couple of students unloading their belongings from their car and walking into the dorm. Next, establish the context of your story. Why should the audience care about the story? You might ask a question of the audience that you'll answer in the video. Start with a compelling piece of sound or video, share the end of the story and build up to how we got there, or share a surprising statistic. You want to build curiosity in your audience. For our story, our context might be a quote or image of a student expressing nervousness or excitement about meeting their new roommate for the first time. Consider the main conflict of the story. The conflict should establish the main problem or tension in the story. It could be a negative conflict, such as a problem for the character or characters to solve, or a positive conflict, like an opportunity the character can take advantage of. It could even be both, depending on the situation. Stories tell us about the challenges people face and help your audience relate to your characters. Even if the situation isn't something your audience has encountered yet, the emotion of the characters dealing with the story's conflict will make your characters more relatable. For our moving in day story, the conflict might be new roommates making decisions together about how to set up their dorm room and the minor disagreements that might come up during the process. The climax is the high point of the story. This is the moment where your character has made it through the conflict or challenge and successfully emerged on the other side. The climax of your story gives your audience a sense of hope or optimism. Our characters in the dorm are getting to know each other and setting the stage for a great freshman year. Finally, wrap your story up to give the audience a feeling of closure. This might be a lesson, an answer to a question, or the completion of the journey, and ultimately the message you want the audience to take away. We see our characters happy in their new home for the next year, making new friends on campus. In our story, we give both parents and students a sense of reassurance that moving away from home for the first time will not just be okay, but a great experience that will lead to a fulfilling college career. In our story, we established our characters, gave the story an emotional context, raised the stakes a little bit with a conflict, solved the problem, and gave the audience a feeling of closure and reassurance. This is just a simple example, but following the 5 C's will help give any story structure and help you build emotion and tension before giving your audience a satisfying takeaway. Now let's talk about the ways you might tell your story on different platforms. Remember, consider your audience. Who should be watching, reading, or interacting with this story? And where are your audiences most likely to see your story? All of these audiences tend to have different social media habits, so consider the platform where these audiences are most likely to see and engage with your content. The platforms you choose for your audience will influence the type of content you're producing. Videos, particularly videos that are a few minutes long or longer, are more often encountered on platforms like Facebook and YouTube. Vertical video shows up in several places, including Facebook and Instagram Reels and Stories, TikTok videos, and YouTube Shorts. It's a great video format to get comfortable with since it can play on so many different platforms. Photo carousels or galleries are great for Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and TikTok even supports photo galleries now. And single photos also do well on Instagram and Facebook, as well as X and LinkedIn. You may consider telling the same story in several different formats, such as a longer version of your video for Facebook and YouTube, and a 1-minute vertical version for Reels and Stories. It's also hard to be the only person on campus in charge of telling stories, so get your faculty, staff, and student body involved in content creation. They can help identify opportunities to tell a story and even capture video or images of key moments that you can use to build your stories later on. Gathering content can be a challenge as well. You may consider an online form, which can be as simple as using platforms such as Google Forms or Jotform. Use QR codes around campus to remind students, faculty, and staff of how they can send you content or story ideas. A dedicated email address that points to a distribution list for your marketing department can also be useful for gathering media content. There are also SMS services that allow you to collect media content, and don't forget about social media comments. Asking people to share their pictures can lead to even more stories to tell. Encourage your community to share their stories and media with you so you have plenty of content to choose from. You might suggest a few content ideas, like photos of a student working on a project in a lab or studio, or a behind-the-scenes video of what goes into an athlete's training. Don't forget to share stories of what your faculty and staff are up to in and out of the classroom as well. Gathering content organically can help lend your stories more authenticity, and every story doesn't have to be overly produced. Now let's take a look at a few examples of stories from higher ed institutions on social media. Here's a great story from Colorado State University's Instagram account telling the story of a first-generation graduate. Valeria Casillas-Payan sets up the context of her own story as well as the conflict, the challenge of breaking generational barriers and making her parents proud. We see her with her parents as she talks about the sacrifices they've made, and in the climax, she walks the stage and receives her degree. And finally, the closure. I really just want to make an impact on the world. Here's another great story that I caught from Texas State University in San Marcos, Texas on LinkedIn. I was really intrigued by the caption. Every Bobcat knows that when they graduate, jumping into the San Marcos River is what makes it all real. But do you know the history behind how Sewell Park came to be a treasured area of Texas State? I didn't know about the tradition and I wanted to learn more. The characters were a professor who championed students taking a swim in the San Marcos River, and the students who made it a tradition to jump into the river after graduation. The context is Sewell Park on the Texas State campus. The conflict is more of an opportunity, a professor turned volunteer swim coach who thought students should take a daily swim in the river. The climax, seeing these photos and videos of new grads taking the plunge, keeping the tradition alive. And the closure, now who's ready to take the leap? It's a great invitation for prospective students to participate in a long-standing tradition while achieving a degree. I also really love this post from Middle Tennessee State University on Facebook. As students get ready for customs, the new student orientation program at MTSU, parents can understandably be nervous. This is a simple photo post, but it has a beginning, middle, and end. The characters, a dad and his daughter. The context, 3 years ago at customs. The conflict, he says, I was as nervous as some of you may be. They'll be leaving the confines of your supervision for the first time in their life for an extended period. The climax, I'm here to tell you, they will figure it out. Trust your teachings, empower them to figure it out. And the closure, best of luck to the parents of incoming freshmen. It's a textbook 5C story and great advice to boot. The University of Wyoming kills it on social. This was a fun story about another campus tradition that I saw on Instagram. We meet our characters, a professor and a student, who set up the context, the legend that says throwing a pine cone into this T-Rex's mouth will guarantee passing all of your finals. While the stakes are low, the conflict is whether or not our characters will succeed in landing a pine cone. At the climax, the student nails it, getting the pine cone stuck on Rexy's tooth. And the closure, you will pass all your finals. It's a really fun video. Finally, this story from the University of Florida on Facebook about hurdler Grant Holloway highlights his Olympic journey. The conflict here is Holloway's fight against injuries, which he overcame with help from University of Florida Health and his Gator coaches. It's a really great story that really highlights the institution while staying focused on Grant Holloway as the main character. Now let's talk about some practical ways you can execute your storytelling plan on social. What better way to tell a story than with stories? Use the stories format on Instagram and Facebook to change up your storytelling. You can use shorter stories, tease a longer story on your full profile, or break up a large story into smaller chunks to make it more interactive. You can schedule your stories in advance using a tool like Social News Desk to make sequencing easy. Share the entire story in a post on social media rather than relying on external links for people to get the full story. An NPR study found that audiences prefer to click on longer posts using the See More button rather than click on posts with external links to their websites or blogs. It's definitely okay to refer to external links for additional information, but your social media stories should be self-contained. Use a captivating caption to give your story more context and set up the conflict. Whether you're using a video or photo to tell your story, don't discount the power of a compelling caption to draw your audience in. Instagram collabs is a great way to bring your story to even more people. Whether you're collaborating with the subject of the video or one of your sub-brand pages, the post will show up for followers of both the publishing account and the collaborating account. Tools like Social News Desk allow you to easily tag your Instagram collaborators when publishing and scheduling your content. And consistency counts. Schedule a series of stories for the same time each week to build a consistent audience. Publishing consistently also has benefits when it comes to the algorithm, as it makes your content more predictable. Use a tool like SND's publishing calendar to plan out your schedule in advance so everyone on your team is on the same page. And use playlists on YouTube and highlights on Instagram to curate your stories into collections. It makes it easier for your audience to find related content if they're interested in learning more. All right, now I'd like to bring in Deanne Hayes, the communications specialist from Middle Tennessee State University. And I should point out, Deanne is also a Social News Desk customer and has been for quite a long time. So Deanne, thank you so much for spending part of the beginning of your semester with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to go through a few questions. First of all, tell me about a couple of memorable stories that you've shared at MTSU.
We have so many great stories going on all the time. Our campus is about 20,000 students, so there is always something great going on. But a couple memorable stories that I can think of. We had a professor who unfortunately lost her son to an accidental drug overdose about a year and a half ago. And last summer, about 6 months after his death, she decided to make it her mission to educate as many people on our campus about Narcan and how to use Narcan and to get Narcan in as many buildings as possible on campus. So she worked with university officials to, kind of push all of this through. She's working with the state of Tennessee for them to actually do the training, right? She comes in and tells her story. She tells the story of her son, and then the trainer comes in and explains how to use Narcan, what you should do, that sort of thing. So that's a story that definitely kind of like pulls at the heartstrings, right? Like as a parent, you're nervous about sending your child away as, things, it's important to know this sort of thing. So there's that. Um, Another story that we have done, it was something that we found on LinkedIn, and it was a student who had tagged us. She was a first gen student, and it is a photo of her holding her graduation photo. And in the photo, in her caption, she said that it was her dad's wish to see her go to MTSU. And her dad passed away before he saw her go to MTSU. So the photo is of her holding it, a photo of her and her dad. And then she's basically telling him, like, Dad, I made it. I did
Oh, that's amazing. You're gonna make me cry. That's really, really heartwarming. All right. So shifting gears a little bit, tell me how storytelling aligns with your strategic goals as a communicator.
Yeah, so that's basically my job, right? My job is to tell all the good news stories that's happening on our campus. And there's so much happening. And, we do a weekly thing every week called Major Monday that you guys saw in the slideshow. And that's kind of something that we do to introduce our students to different majors that they may not know that is available to them. I have a student team that I rely on, and they go out and they go up to students and say, Hey, do you want to be involved in this? And they ask them, What's your major? What do you want to do when you're done with school? Where are you from? What kind of things are you involved in on this campus? And so we use that every week. We do it every Monday around lunchtime. So that's kind of one way that we help kind of tell the story of MTSU, a way that we can reach out to current students who maybe don't know what they want to do yet whenever they come, because that's okay. Prospective students who are like, oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that MTSU offered X, Y, and Z. That's something that I want to look into.
Yeah, and I was watching some of the Major Monday stories, and I noticed I learned that there's like a music production major at MTSU, which is really, really cool. So
Yeah.
that's definitely like one of those majors I never would have thought that there was something out there for that. So what a great way to get some of those, kind of maybe lesser known majors out in front of prospective students.
Mhm.
So what audiences have you seen that are a little bit more receptive to storytelling? Maybe students, alumni, parents, that kind of thing?
Definitely our students and prospective students, and obviously the parents as well, because they kind of want to keep up on what's going on at the university, especially if they're sending their child away and they're hours and hours away, right? So, but those are our main audiences. I mean, of course, we have alumni, but I would say that our main audience would be current students and prospective students.
All right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, what's the biggest challenge that you face when you're trying to tell stories on social media?
For me, and this is a good problem to have, I think, there are just so many stories out there on our campus that need to be told. And, we are a small team who's doing social media at MTSU. And like I said earlier, I do rely on a small student team to help me. And they are kind of my eyes and ears out on campus. And I highly recommend that if you're able to hire students and have a student team. That has definitely been a huge thing that has helped me and that has helped grow our accounts. Because these are the students who are in class with other students. They're my eyes and they're my ears. They're eating lunch with these students and that sort of thing. So I think, you know, the biggest challenge again is probably having too much good news to share. There's just not enough hours in the day.
That sounds like one of those like resume questions or like interview questions. What's your biggest weakness? Oh, I'm just too caring. Like, no, that's a great
Right.
problem to have. To just
It
have
is,
this,
yes.
this overabundance of great content that you want to share out. And having students involved in the process, I think is great because it gives your stories a real air of authenticity. It's like students telling other students stories. And what a great opportunity for those students also who are working with you to kind of learn the ropes a little bit and learn what it's like to really manage social media in a really real way. So, how do you tend to adapt a long form story for other formats like Facebook or Instagram stories or Reels or things like that?
So that's a really great question. So at our May commencement, we had country music singer Hardy speak. He gave the speech to our graduates. He's also an alumni of the university. So he gave about a 10 or 15-minute speech, and he's super encouraging, telling students like to take care of themselves, take care of their mental health, all of these things, right? Like it's okay if you fail, all of these things. But obviously, you're not going to watch a 10 or 15-minute video on Instagram. So, what we did, we pulled out, I think we actually shared his reel from his account to our account where he kind of hit the highlights on what he said on Facebook. Like the entire speech was posted because more people are going to watch a longer form of his speech at that on Facebook just because of who the audience is. And then it was also posted in long form on YouTube.
Awesome. And I know your students also help with Bonnaroo every year, which I think is amazing. And I noticed that you guys had just a lot of kind of storytelling going on around Bonnaroo. And what's it like kind of telling the story of kind of a multi-day event like this and kind of covering it in a short form format over a longer period of time?
So, like I said, my student team, I mean, I cannot give them enough credit because they really are amazing. And whenever they go out to Bonnaroo, they are there for 4 days. It is hot. It is dusty. There's so many people, but they hit the ground running and they really look for stories to tell. They look for, things that are trending on social media and how they can adapt that to where they're at, like at Bonnaroo. Like, for example, they did a reel kind of on who are you wearing or what are you wearing this last Bonnaroo, which did really well for us. Last year, they did show me your best dance move, which again did really well on Instagram. My team is great at helping me follow trends. And, for events like Bonnaroo, I really kind of let them go at it. Like they run their ideas by me. Everything is approved by me, but I really give them free reign. And I feel like that makes it a lot more authentic because it's coming from a college student instead of a 30-something-year-old mom, right? So, yeah.
Not that 30-something-year-old moms don't have things to say, or 40-somethings for that matter. But yes, students talking to students definitely is more effective. So that's really cool that you do that. And finally, are there any storytelling projects that you're working on for this upcoming school year?
So we are continuing Major Mondays. That has been a really big hit for us, and we've had a lot of success with that. We are also launching a new hashtag. Typically, we do True Blue, but we are also launching a new hashtag that is Find Your Blue. That's going to go along with a marketing campaign that we'll be launching. And then we're also working on kind of like a Q&A with our professors. And this is primarily going to be used on Facebook. And it's kind of for a way, it's more so for parents, right? Just because a lot of times this is the first time that they're not involved with their child's schoolwork, right? Like they don't know their teacher, they don't know who's teaching them math, they don't know who's teaching them English. So the idea is I give them about 10 questions, and they're super simple questions, and things like that would be more personable, like, hey, what's in your work bag? Or what's the best advice you've ever gotten? Or what would your students be surprised to know about you? So they're going to answer these questions. I think I'm launching it, I think actually next week. So be on the lookout for that. But then we will include a photo of the professor along with their answers. And the photo, it's not their headshot, right? Like we want to see them being a real person. We want to see them like hanging out with their dog, or if they garden, like in their garden, like doing things like that, just to kind of make them a real person and kind of connect parents with who's teaching their child.
I think that's a really cool idea, and probably, gives especially first-time parents just a real great sense of reassurance that, like, I've entrusted my child to these people to expand their world, and what are we all getting ourselves into? So I think that's great. So thank you so much for answering those questions, and I really appreciate you being here with us today.
Yeah,
If
thank
you have any other
you.
questions for Deanne, feel free to send those to us at support or info at socialnewsdesk.com. or you can hit Deanna up on LinkedIn. I'm going to pop your LinkedIn address back up on the screen. I know that we would both love to connect with you guys if you have any other questions that you'd like to talk more about. And finally, if you are having trouble wrangling multiple accounts over multiple platforms, Social News Desk is battle tested by thousands of communicators daily in universities, school districts, municipalities, journalism, and meteorology. Our consolidated social media tool allows for updating multiple channels at once, meaning you can plan and execute your storytelling campaigns across all platforms at one time. And since social accounts are onboarded in advance, users already have access to the accounts they need to get the job done without sharing passwords and jeopardizing security. This also helps to reduce errors and keeps users from accidentally publishing to personal accounts. Our easy to use tool allows for quick updates and gives you a comprehensive view of your performance across all social media accounts. So thank you all again for attending today's webinar. I did see a question on whether or not there will be a recording available. Yes, there will be a recording available. I'll be sending it out hopefully later this afternoon, if not tomorrow, but hopefully today. I also will have an ebook available for download at socialnewsdesk.com. That should be up in the next couple of days, and we will be sure to share that on our own social accounts as well. If you'd like more information about Social News Desk and how we can help you streamline your social media management, you can visit socialnewsdesk.com or send us an email at info@socialnewsdesk.com. Thank you all again for your time today. I hope you have a great school year, and thanks again.